Welcome to Pitch It To Me Podcast, a show about the subjective past, present, and potential future of Flesh and Blood design. In preparation for Mechanologist's return in High Seas, we will analyze a selection of cards from Bright Lights and see what we can learn from that set's design. You can find us across all socials, such as Bluesky and Instagram, at Pitch It To Me Podcast.
I'm Clark.
I'm Joel.
And I'm Fuzzy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Pitch It To Me Podcast.
Hi.
We've recorded a lot of episodes in preparation for April. This is probably coming out in April. Might come out early May. We'll see where all the episode lands, but
Yeah, Clark and Joel are leaving us to go do London things. Our recording schedule is a little bit all over the place. We've been so good at releasing every single week of 2025. We're going to try to keep it up even though we're going on vacations.
yeah, I'm gonna be doing a whole extra week in Italy after PT London.
Yep.
And I'm not going to be available to record or edit the podcast. I will be in the middle of nowhere.
Hell yeah, brother. I'll be here, though. Chilling.
Speaking of work stuff though, Joel.
Yeah, I just came back from a 6-day trip to Vegas, which might sound cool, but I don't.
It does sound cool.
But I don't cheat, gamble, or drink, so this is like the worst place for me to be. And I was also like sick for the first 4 days of my trip, but it was for this like basically career defining event that I was helping prepare since I got hired. And it went swimmingly. I think the hours that I put in to make sure all the details were worked out went really smoothly. And then even the stuff that was starting to go a little bit bad or just some hiccups along the way, I handled really well. I was just on my game.
So in Flesh and Blood terms, you sunk your winning in, and now you're going on to day 2 of
This
your
is
career.
like 46-0 against like Michael Hamilton and my winning in.
Wow.
And so that's how the event went. Yeah.
I'm so excited you're day 2ing your career.
Yeah, can't believe you resolved 2 sigil solaces. I didn't think you'd run those.
Yeah.
God, he had extra room and tempo for the sigil solaces. This
Yeah.
guy just smoked it.
Yeah,
Incredible.
I was pretty on top of it.
And or he played CYB combo.
Okay, that's disgusting.
But yeah, my bosses are happy. And we got some really good leads from the event, so I'm pretty excited about the next few weeks.
Nice.
Well, sweet. We love hearing about everyone doing well.
Yeah. Speaking of doing well, I've been doing pretty well at the AGE. I not only made that semifinal finish back in February, but then I proceeded to get points the next 2 months. Your boy is a mid-gamer. I can get points.
I'm sure you've like more than doubled the amount of points I've gotten in the AGEs at this point.
Yeah, maybe. And I also think it's not official yet. I gotta wait for them to make the post, but I'm pretty sure I'm in the left column of the top 16.
He's totally getting invited.
Maybe we'll see. I definitely don't feel great about Victor as a hero in this meta, especially with Enigma's rising presence. I think by the time this episode comes out, we'll be in the middle of a big PQ season, and like Enigma's probably running that shit in terms of like how she's been rising in meta share right now. So yeah, I don't love Victor as a choice, but I've been having a lot of fun building Ira recently. I'd love to see her get some meta share and get some play in.
I really don't see her doing well in Aurora meta or Enigma meta, but I did see, like when I played at my last RTN, one of our locals, Thomas, beat an Enigma in the top 8, so I don't know. Maybe I don't know what to talk about.
I mean, Kodachis can threaten the big wards very efficiently, right? So it's definitely... It's an option that's out there. I'm exploring my decks.
So true, bestie.
It's fun.
I love this free-spirited girly era of yours.
Yeah, I'm not locked into Runeblade anymore. It's like a whole new world has
Yeah,
opened
bro.
up for me.
Yeah, play the field.
So everyone, before we jump into today's episode, we want to hear from you. What did you guys think of Bright Lights as a Fab player, and how do you think they're going to return to some of the designs in High Seas?
All right. So for this episode today, we're going to be just talking about different cards that we've selected for discussion from the set Bright Lights. It's fun to talk about these older sets a little bit, do these kind of retrospective episodes where we get to talk about how has this set impacted Flesh and Blood design and the meta, and the way we think about the game for the last year or so, especially as we look to the future with the new set High Seas coming up. We've got a new mechanologist. It doesn't happen that often that we see a new mechanologist. Hey, who knows, maybe we'll do another episode like this for Ranger somehow, but we're going to talk about some cards from Bright Lights, and that's basically how it's going to go. Red pitch, yellow pitch, blue pitch, Bright Lights cards, Bright Lights cards, Bright Lights cards.
Yeah. I think I'll go ahead and take the mic then and jump in with red pitch. I'm talking about Evos because Evos were a really core part to Bright Lights. I mean, they even gave it the set name of EVO, right? Like Evos are a big part of Bright Lights.
I think if there was one thing we were going to talk about, it should be Evos for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. One of the main inspiring parts of why we're doing this episode was also the fact that like there's not a lot of excitement around mechanologists right now in High Seas. No one's like, what crazy things are they going to do with mechanologists? Everyone's like, oh yeah, it's mech. They're gonna like crank some items and then attack for 0-4s over and over again. Okay, yeah, we've seen it all before. But the fact of the matter is that we are getting a new mechanologist set, and Bright Lights was not super well liked. I don't think LSS is going to return to the exact same well and give us a lot of the exact same designs and math in the same way, because people didn't like the math that was presented in Bright Lights. People didn't really show a lot of enthusiasm for that set, maybe because it was just mechs. But even mech players were not super hot on Bright Lights and Bright Lights design. So they're probably going to mix it up and do some exciting things. And I think Evos are a great place to do that. If you look at Puffin's art, you will see that Puffin is a bird. But their human companion
Is Hightail?
is Hightail.
Oh.
And she has some missing body parts and has some mechanical, it's that like pirate peg leg idea. I think we could totally see a return to Evos.
Okay, amputee baddie.
Yeah, and people, I don't think they're expecting that, right? And because they don't need to make Evos as central of an idea, they can get to focus it maybe like on the leg slot for her, because she has that mechanical peg leg, right?
I would love to play like a pirate that has a hook for hand, but you can replace the hook with whatever random gadget you need to.
Yeah, this is kind of what I'm getting at. So let's talk a little bit about how they did Evos to maybe help us understand what was wrong then and what they might do now. So the first card I want to talk about is Evo Smoothbore.
What is Evo Smoothbore?
Evo Smoothbore is a yellow 3-cost Mechanologist Action Equipment Evo Arms. Yes, that is a lot of text. I think when Bright Lights came out, we were even like, wow, they had to change the bottom of the cards to fit all this text down there.
I think there were other ancillary benefits, but for the purposes of that joke, yeah, it's 100% true.
Yeah, they had to like, yeah. It says, if you have a base arms equipped, transform it into this, then equip this. Putting the base arms under the Evo Smoothbore in your arm zone. Then once per turn instant, you can destroy a card under Evo Smoothbore to give your next weapon attack this turn +1. It is a blade break 3-block equipment, and this is a rare. 1, why am I getting 4 value for 3 resources at yellow? Let's compare the value of this card to a yellow 3-cost attack. A yellow 3-cost attack is expected to give 6 power, right? 3 costs at red gives 7 power, so at yellow we would presume it gives 6 power. And this does not match that value at all. This is 3 resources at action with no go again, right? Because you do have to play this as an action card for 4 conceivable value. And not even on the turn that you play it, right? If you like have to block with this immediately, you don't get that 4th value. You can only get 3 value from this. So it's a really, really low rate as an individual card that you need to play from your deck using an action, right?
So if we compare it to other items, because we've talked in the past about like anything that's going to give you delayed value, they want to stymie. They want to give you less value later than you would normally get up front. A card like Truce is a blue that costs 2 that is probably going to give you 1 card of value. This card costs 3 more, it pitches for less, and it blocks for 3, which is kind of comparable, and maybe giving you 1 point on the back end. But there are other costs associated with it that Truce doesn't ask of you, so it seems weird that this card is a worse rate than Truce, you know?
Yeah, there is this massive downside to Evos of not being able to start with real equipment. right? You have to be starting with these base equipment, which typically do not have a reasonable battle-worn block value and cannot typically give you reliable value until you equip these Evos on top of them. And then there's the issue of this is not a base Evo. So once you play Evo Smoothbore into your arm slot, you no longer have access to playing any other arms card, including other copies of Evo Smoothbore. This means that you cannot replace that value. So the moment that you play one Evo Smoothbore, the other Evo Smoothbores become cracked baubles that can block for 3, I guess.
And blocking for 3 is, I think, okay for a card that could be totally useless after a certain point in the game. You would want them to have a nice block value. There are other Evos in the game that if you're running 3 copies of them, you play the first and the others have no block value. They're extra dead in your hand. This card is interesting because it's one of the Evos that is less dead after you play the first one, and it's still not great.
Yeah, I mean, some people joke about running Titanium Bauble, but I still don't see Titanium Bauble making it to any lists.
Well, not anymore.
Yeah, the card pool has advanced beyond that point, right? They'll run a Warmongers because, like, well, at least it has text on it. But in a similar way, like, this is a cracked bauble, titanium bauble thingy, right? Like, it's even worse than a titanium bauble.
It's
once
a metal
you play
bauble.
That first one. Yeah.
Stainless steel
Evo
bauble.
Smooth Bubble.
Evo Smooth Bauble. And that makes it really, really frustrating. Now, in Mechanologist, you can boost them away, right? But here's the thing. If you boost it away, you can't play it anymore.
Yeah, if I run 3 copies, it's okay if I boost extra ones away. I'll still have 1 to grab. I run the risk of some of them getting useless after I play the first one, right? But if I run 1 copy and it gets boosted away, now my equipment that I was planning on transforming won't get any value. It's risky no matter how many copies of the card you run. There doesn't seem to be an ideal.
Exactly. And that is bad design, in my opinion. I think that Evos were bad designed in this way. And then there is the ultimate pitfall. Being able to start and play with equipment is a major value piece. We talk about how important things like Dyadic Carapace is just for having battle-worn value, right? Having that inherent block value in your equipment slot is important. And it's something that every other hero start with, except for Mechanologists who decide to run Evos. They don't get that value. So they start weaker than everybody else and then have to play underrate cards to get to a slightly buffed version of what everyone else gets for free at the start of the game. That's rough.
Yeah, not just the cost of not running normal equipments, because equipments are gas, but also you have to pay a lot of tempo just to get the equipments out there, and the benefit that you get from those 2 major costs doesn't seem to be worth it.
Joel, what have you thought about Evos and Evo design?
See, I really like them. Even though I think Mechanologist as a whole just doesn't blend flavor-wise with the rest of Flesh and Blood. But if I'm looking at just Mechanologists and Evos, they're really cool. I like
Totally.
the fact that you're sort of building this arsenal. The Smoothbore line, or the Smooth whatevers. Yeah, I really like this line in particular because it reminds me of, like, the mechs that appear in, like, Fallout. Like some of the power suits of armor that you can wear.
Yeah, I know Evos really are badass flavor. They're such an opportunity for LSS because they are one of the coolest designs at face value aesthetically. And I really hope that they find a way to implement them back into the game in a way that's balanced a little bit better.
And I kind of get why they're a little bit underpowered, because even if you spend the tempo to equip one of these on your equipment zones, you're still getting a one-time use of 3 block, which is already overrate for any equipment, and that's why people gravitate towards, like, the Steel Soul series, because it's 3 temper. But even 3 Battle Break can have its use cases, especially if the abilities on these equipments are aggressively slanted. So getting 4 value on each of them is a little bit like drawing cards, not directly, but that's sort of how I'm thinking about it. Like, they are being careful in the way that you're able to store resources, store this defensive overlap.
Sure.
And so for that reason, I kind of see why it's a little bit underrate as compared to, like, anything else you'd be spending 3 resources and an action point on. But overall, I think they really pulled their punches on like the most of the Evos, because all the aggressive options that you have are just they have no chance of translating in the same way that you can with the Steel Soul series.
I completely agree. They definitely do need to be careful about allowing for a massive amount of defensive overlap. And I think we have seen some decks utilize that in some not quite unhealthy ways, but definitely in ways where we have seen that power with Evo's Steel Soul legs in Pistol Dash.
Yes.
And also there was a brief moment when Maxes were running that for some block value in their legs as just a way of helping delay the game until they could transform into Mechanoid. Now, there is another part to the Evo equation, which I want to discuss in my next card, Demolition Protocol. Demolition Protocol is a majestic red 3-cost Mechanologist attack action. It has Evo Upgrade. When this attacks a hero, remove all Steam counters from up to X equipment, items, and or weapons they control, where X is the number of Evos you have equipped. So this introduces us to the Evo Upgrade mechanic, which I believe is actually a part of the equation for running Evos, which is you get these attack actions which can become overrate if you get to play your Evos out. And I think that's really, it's a very necessary aspect to the equation for Evos, because just looking at Evos alone, they are completely non-functional. But once you start including some of these other Evo upgrade cards, now you're starting to see where they try to provide that actual value, right?
Right.
A yellow 3-cost 4 value card is nowhere near good enough. But when you're adding a card that can go overrate like this, a 3 for 7 that can remove like 4 Steam counters, just completely take away a weapon, right? Like Dash's weapon, just, no, you don't get any more pistol shots. That's really strong. But the thing is that, why does this only hit Steam counters?
Yeah.
Why couldn't this hit any counters, right? Imagine if this could hit Findall's counters. Right?
Energy counters.
Energy counters. There's so many, like, what if this just hit other things?
Yeah, Mechanologists has always seemed to me like the class with the most unique amounts of disruption. And I'm thinking here specifically of T-Bone and how you can target people's really fragile equipment suite. Like if someone is using New Horizons and you boost a certain amount of times the Evos and grab either their Tunic or their New Horizons or whatever, and like Pulse Wave Harpoon being able to forcibly grab cards from your opponent's hand. Demolition Protocol seemed like one of those cards where it could have just said, hey, you're a deck that cares about counters in some way, I'm going to remove them and give a little bit more play, a little bit more viability to Evo users. And it was just unnecessarily sandbagged.
Yeah. I think the main issue was that this is such a narrow slice that only impacts other mechanologists. Now, is this a dope-ass limited Majestic? Yes, for sure. And this is such a design choice that we see actually throughout Bright Lights, where there are so many interesting Majestics and Rares that only care about destroying items or removing Steam counters or attacking Evos specifically. Like, it's so insular to just Bright Lights.
Yeah, I think it's cool when they print counterplay to the cards that they provide in the set, because it makes it a little bit easier for them to be okay with printing like higher power level stuff when the counterplay is also available. However, it's just given to Mechanologists, so only Mechanologist can check itself, you know?
Yeah, when compared to, say, how Weakest Link was printed in Misveil.
Yeah.
Now, I'm probably not the happiest about how much money Weakest Link is worth, but I am very happy at the fact that they printed a generic 2-cost Majestic that attacked the core fundamental strategy that those heroes were playing.
Yeah.
And I think this was the main issue of this being a single class set. Mechanologists got too many tech pieces for Mechanologists. So if Mechanologist was ever at the top of the meta, they just end up cannibalizing themselves. I don't think that is good widespread design, right? It was okay in the set itself, but the fact that it had no wider meta implications, I think brought it down.
Yeah, I think this card has unfortunately been reduced to a 3 for 7. I've literally heard conversations between Han V and Dennis Pham about like, yeah, run Demolition Protocol over Big Shot because it's always a 3 for 7. Period.
Period mark. Yeah.
It's like, that's so sad.
Yeah. And this is also because so many Evo upgrade cards have a line that makes their effect worse and are underrate if you don't have at least 2 Evos. So let's take a look at some of our other Evo upgrade cards. We have Mechanical Strength, a 3 for 5. You know, that really great rate of 3 for 5. But it has Evo upgrade that gets plus X, where X is the number of Evos. So it could be a 3 for 9.
That'd be cool.
That's great. But Levia just gets that the moment I have 3 cards in a 6, one of which is a 6 in my graveyard, right? Why does it have to take playing 4 Evos for them to get that sort of rate? Or let's take a look at Heavy Artillery. The defending a hero can't defend this with attack action cards with costs less than X, where X is the number of Evos you have equipped. Holy shit! That's some really good evasion, right? No. Read that again. Defending hero can't defend this with attack action cards. Non-attack action cards can block this regardless. Reactions can block this regardless. Allies, I don't know if allies can block, but like allies could conceivably block this. So again, it has like, just adding that word attack makes this card so much worse. I feel like this would be run in a lot more decks with Evos if it didn't say attack action cards right there.
They also have lots of options for Evo upgrade cards too. So the worser Evo upgrade cards have a harder time seeing play.
Yeah. I know, admittedly, there aren't that many of these cards. And I think that in high seas, we could see a return to Evo upgrades and a return to Evos where, you know, maybe you only need 1 or 2 Evos for it to become overrate. And as long as it's not a Puffin specialization card, that could really see the floodgates open for the rest of Mechanologists in running Evo cards.
I think it's interesting how the Evo upgrade cards, they give you the exact same reward curve based on the Evos themselves, because Evos want you to have a shit early game in order to get good rewards late game. Evo upgrade cards also are shit early game to give you a reward late game. And I wonder if there's some design space that could open up in the future where they flip the curve a little bit. Because what if there were just Evo support cards that made it easier for you to get the Evos on the board? I don't think they explored that space too much in the original Bright Light set. I think like that's the kind of stuff that Evo cards need. They need you to be able to get your Evos out sooner. Those are the kind of cards that I want to put in my deck if I'm planning on running Evos, or have control over what I do with Evos after they're already played, something to do with those like useless Evo cards after.
Yes, giving all the Evos an effect that occurs when they are played, and then if you have a base equipment, then it becomes the equipment, right? So it can almost act as a non-attack action card that after resolving can go on top of the base, but you can always get that initial value of the non-attack action card that you're playing.
Or like a loyalty beyond the grave effect for Mechanologists to search Evos, you know?
Which also then rewards it for having Blade Break or Temper and letting it break and go to the graveyard. Because before, a lot of Mechanologists are terrified of actually letting those equipment break because they rely on them to provide the Evo upgrade value for their late game. So they can never really get rid of it. And by allowing it to break and go to graveyard for these loyalty beyond the grave effects, where maybe you can banish it or do something else with it, that's a really, really cool idea. Plus, Tech Levasan loves it, right?
Right.
Block with it, and then I can like self-scrap it without having to run scrap cards. I'm sure Tech Levasans would love that card. But yeah, Evos. I really hope that we see a return to them in high seas with, you know, pirates replacing their hook hands or their peg legs. I'm really excited to see how they try to solve this problem of how much value is lost in the early game and how they can help balance that out a little bit. That's all I have for red pitch. I think I'm going to pass it off to yellow pitch, which is Fuzzy.
All right. So I want to talk about 2 specific cards for different reasons. I'm thinking a little bit less on the perspective of Evos and what we might see in high seas, and more of like broad strokes, some design patterns in Mechanologist that I want to talk about. The first card I want to use to highlight that is Singularity.
Whoa! the single splashiest card from Bright Lights.
I would say it's one of the splashiest cards in the game. I don't think there's many more cards that have such an explosive effect as to completely rearrange your entire board state into one super robot that you use to demolish your opponents. Like,
Well, Fuzzy, I can think of at least one other.
what?
Construct Nitromechanoid.
Even, okay, you're right. Mechanoid is also a very flashy card.
Well, it's like you set it up perfectly.
Yeah.
You like describe Construct Nitromechanoid.
Technically, Singularity eats up one more card than Construct Mechanoid, I think. Right?
Maybe.
Actually, no, because you do...
Mechanoid needs 3 hyperdrivers.
Yeah.
Singularity doesn't. It just needs 4 evos.
And your hero.
Well, yeah. But Singularity has, like, it's a lot more foreboding because they made him a Mechropotent, a shadow mechanologist for some reason with a soul.
Bro.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's good shit.
And I think the word extreme defines it really well. And Fab has to be really careful with extreme strategies because Fab tends to not be a game of extremes. We don't have infinite combos every game like Magic the Gathering does. And we don't have like as much variance in other games. It's a pretty disciplined game where you have cards that have similar value depending on the different ways that you use them, you know? Mm-hmm. Singularity offers to break the game, break the fundamental math of the game in a way that LSS generally has to be really careful about. And there's a reason why they don't do it very often. So would you guys agree that like Singularity promotes a play style where all I have to do is play Singularity to win the game?
Oh, this is hard because we have a Teklo local, and for me specifically, all the locals I play at, he plays at. So like, I know
love Ben.
I love Ben. I love how dedicated Ben is to Teklo Vossen. I think he does not actually resolve Singularity all that often, and I have seen him be very comfortable blocking with Singularity. So I almost want to say no, but also as a design, yes.
He's Ben has also told me on a few occasions where he will change his strategy based on what his opponent's doing. So I've actually seen him cast it twice, and we've played many times where he has not cast it. So I think overall I would say no, that it's not the like ultimate goal of the deck. I think it's really the most win more card there is in Flesh and Blood.
Okay. I love that perspective. It's a little bit counter to at least my intuition about the card.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and say that I have more experience than a Teklovosen player. Mm-hmm. So I'm really glad that my assumption is being challenged a bit. But the amount of value you get from casting this one card does seem like it could be enough to completely run away with the game, even if you're down by 30 life. Even if you have only swung a couple of attacks before that up until this point, because the amount of aggressive pressure that you can get from casting this card and setting up your deck with these amazing disruptive 3-for-9s that are going to have go again, you know, the amount of offensive pressure that you get for the rest of the game is incredible.
I do want to check one thing, Fuzzy, which is when you think about playing Singularity, do you think about playing Singularity on a full Evo Steel Soul board? Where you are getting the 5 intellect, where you are getting those 3-for-9s on top of your deck, where you're getting the extra action points when you play this card? Or are you more thinking about like playing it on a board of, I don't know, the Zipline series, right? Those like little yellow 0-cost instant evos.
I think there's a design intention embedded into the game that if you play it with all the Steel Soul series out, it's going to be full power.
Oh, for sure.
And that might be enough to single-handedly win the game in some circumstances, right?
But is that value attributed to the Evos or to Singularity?
That's true. Like, how much of that design credit can we give to Singularity? How much is it, like, dispersed across the pieces of the set? That's a good question. Because it isn't necessarily just Singularity winning you the game at that point. It's in tandem with this other set of Majestics. So I acknowledge that. But I do think the play style is what I want to focus in on. The play style is ultra defensive until you flip. I think maybe even the most defensive play style, save for fatigue. And I know fatigue is a very wide umbrella too. But considering that the goal is not necessarily for your opponent to simply stop providing threats, it's the most defensive playstyle that does have an actual end game, because it is pretty much one card. Everything else is defensive. Playing Evo Steel Souls does not require me to attack. I can if I want to. Sometimes the scrap cards make it easier, but I don't really have to attack to play those. I don't really have to put on actual pressure. I just play Singularity, and the pressure comes after I'm done wading through the defense and setting up my game.
I think that is true.
So with that assumption, I'm so glad you guys poked a couple of holes in it. But for the purposes of this discussion, I want to talk about how healthy playstyles like that are for the game. Because I think Fab has a little bit of a polarization issue. Mm-hmm. When you're designing cards for a game, especially new heroes, new classes, you want to be able to create new axes that you can iterate upon. They did this really early when they made arcane damage. They're like, hey, let's introduce a completely new damage type to the game as part of the fundamental way that they set up the game, right? Arcane Rising is, I assume, pretty much in the works before they even printed Welcome to Wraith. It was something they always intended to be in the game for the purposes of this discussion.
Yeah, a lot of the times when the alpha part, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Joel, because you played closer to this period than I did. Mm-hmm. Welcome to Wraith and Arcane Rising were considered the alpha of Flesh and Blood. And when they put those sets forward, they were intended as, this is the baseline for the game.
That's how it was explained to me. I would say it's like the alpha and the beta, but the origin of the game is probably the most accurate way you could describe Flesh and Blood.
Yeah, and James White oftentimes talks about the original 8 heroes and that being separate from what comes after.
Mm-hmm. So arcane damage is a completely separate axis from regular attacking and blocking, and they have Runeblade, which tends to do lots of small bursts of arcane, and Wizard that does one big burst of arcane, and how the different heroes and players can interact with those mechanics. So by introducing a whole nother axis to play, you need the players to be able to have tools to respond to it, right? Mm-hmm. Very polarizing strategies have a very delicate balance to strike for them to be healthy for the game. I think Teklovozen and Singularity as a strategy, while, again, that's an umbrella for, I'm sure, a lot of different iterations you could make within, I think they fit that criteria for something that can either be completely overpowering or very underpowered, and it's very hard to find yourself in the middle where it's a upper B tier, lower A tier deck.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And right now, Teklovozen is sitting in the F tier part of that curve, where he does not have the tools to fight off a lot of decks. Either you can handle Teklovozen or you can't. He has a few good matchups, right? Mm-hmm. But he's able to beat slower decks because he has an ultimate endgame tool that any slower deck is going to have a really hard time fighting against, or he gets walled out and he's not able to protect himself.
Very much so. And I would say any really polarizing playstyles like these are going to have that struggle where they just feel bad. Stat Kano also kind of felt like this, even though a lot of people, and especially Kano players, refer to it as probably the healthiest that Kano has ever felt in the meta. Still kind of feels like, well, kill me before I hit my stack or else. Shrug. Yeah. And Singularity can feel like that. I think Kasai's Raisin Army can feel like that in certain matchups. I
would argue any deck that uses allies is polarizing in and of itself.
Yes.
Not just Kasai. I like that you... I thought it was really funny that you decided Kasai was the problem.
Well, I've been talking with Colin about the Kasai Victor matchup specifically.
Colin Erickson.
Yeah. And he's been saying, Victor's probably one of the ones I struggle with the most because you can actually deal damage to me. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, but if I ever just play Raisin Army with 3 or 4 allies, I will win that game. And it's yeah, I don't know how much I like that. I don't know if that's entirely healthy for the game to have any of these late game trump cards. But I think a lot of people love playing the decks where there are these big late game trump cards. So I think they kind of should exist in Flesh and Blood, but they present this inherent design problem that's always going to be a little toxic.
I think if I were to rephrase what I love you're saying, it's that if you want to produce really cool, really fun effects, they probably have to be some level of really powerful in a way. And you have to put powerful effects at the end of the game in order for them to feel fair at all, Mm-hmm. Raising an army in Kasai is really badass. And in order to make it fair, you have to sacrifice a bunch of gold tokens, which means you have to wait some time to build it up. And then you get 3 or 4 of these soldiers, and that's a really powerful effect. How are you going to let the player have 3 or 4 soldiers from a single card in a way that feels fair? You kind of have to gatekeep it behind this end game goal, this long-term quest that you have to fulfill. Mm-hmm. I think I want to move on to talking about another card that I think is a hallmark of mechanologist design that's Twin Drive.
Ooh, you mean the most expensive card in Bright Lights?
And why is this the most expensive card in Bright Lights? It literally has 2 words of text. Boost, boost.
No. It has a lot more than 2 words of text because they felt the need to put the reminder text for boost on each instance of boost. Give me flavor text, you fucks.
Boost. As an additional cost to play this, you may banish the top card of your deck. If it's a Mechanologist card, this gets go again. Boost. As an additional cost to play this, you may banish the top card of your deck.
It makes me so angry.
It is a 2 for 5 that blocks for 3. It's a worse rate compared to Throttle, which is a 2 for 6, but Throttle only boosts once. Even though Go Again doesn't stack, right? You can boost twice with Twin Drive, but you're only going to be able to get Go Again once. So if you're playing the card in an isolated event, Twin Drive is a worse card than Throttle, which is a common from Arcane Rising. And somehow...
Yeah. Which way, modern Fab player? $30 boost twice for -1 value? Or 20 cents 2 for 6 with Go Again?
So, I'm being a little glib here. The reason Twin Drive is a good card is because of Synergy. Synergy is the only reason why you would consider Twin Drive a good card. I suppose there's a floor of I can always just boost once and get a 2 for 5 Go Again, and a 2 for 5 Go Again isn't that bad, especially one that blocks for 3.
Ninjas run it.
Yeah, but Surging Strike has a lot of synergy. Stupid. You're the Guardian player running Zealous Belting. That literally is just a 2 for 5 Go Again. And hey, Twin Drive blocks for 3. Zealous Belting and Surging Strike only block for 2. So there's a little bit of an edge over that. Probably not enough to make it a Majestic. The real power is in Synergy. Mm-hmm. And that's a design pattern we see over and over and over again in Bright Lights. They give you a card that could only be considered good when you take into account Synergy.
Yeah.
And I think that shows that LSS is afraid of something. They're afraid of that synergy because you can only get the value if the synergy is even better than the deficit that you had in the first place just for playing an underrate card.
Ooh, that is not the framing that I would use. Because afraid kind of puts it into a negative context. I think it's really positive. Because I think they're saying, look, this is an interesting special effect that makes you want to work around it. Mm-hmm. You want to find ways of getting value out of boosting twice when you see something like Twin Drive. Or maybe it's more like you see all these cards that care about you boosting things away, like Hyper X3, and being, if you manage to boost away a Hyperdriver, you can start drawing cards.
Sure.
That's pretty fucking good. Or Maximum Velocity, right? 2 for 5 Go Again draw a card is pretty fucking insane, right? Or getting to that 2 for 10 easier, that's really, really good. So I think it's less of they're afraid of that synergy, but they know that there is a value in that synergy. And so they are evaluating that second line of boost properly by giving it -1 value.
Interesting. I think that I have a little bit of an advantage here because we know that Bright Lights was not very well received. It didn't sell that well.
This card was very well received by mechanologists. Admittedly, because every single mechanologist is running maximum velocity, and this is really good with maximum velocity.
It's true that Twin Drive does make max velocity a lot easier to run, you know?
Yeah.
That synergy is very much there. Being able to boost twice is good for playing a 2 for 10.
and also High Octane when High Octane was legal.
That's true.
Getting 2 action points.
I just have this distinct memory of our friend Han V, who was a Dash inventor extraordinaire, truther, believer. That was his main hero. And he was like, guys, they're printing an all mechanologist set. I am so excited. And then a few months later, the set is out. He's looking over the list and he's like, I think the only card in this entire set that I care about is Twin Drive.
Yeah.
If I'm going to play Dash IE, I think Twin Drive is the only card that makes my deck any better.
Mm-hmm. And he's not on the pistol dash, so he wasn't even looking at Steel Soul legs at all.
Yeah.
So literally just the one card for dash.
I don't know, maybe some of that is healthy. It's okay to iterate on the design because we know that Dash IO, the new Dash hero, was playing plenty of these cards from Bright Lights, right?
Yeah.
Boom Grenade is really good. That's a common.
Heist.
Yeah, there were plenty of other good options. I also remember him playing cards like Junkyard Dog at blue, which is a 3/4/4 that becomes a 3/5 blue if you scrap a card. And again, this is one of those cards. It's like I have to scrap in order for this to be
On rate.
a 3-for-7 block 3, which is
Yeah.
what all other classes get, including Mechanologist, because it exists in generic with no effects. 3-for-7 block 3 is not something that I need to work to get to normally. And the scrapping, I kind of argue, is only good if you're playing Teklovozen, where he can play Evos from Banish. I might just be like missing something obvious here, but are there any other synergies for scrapping cards that really exist?
I think it is Heist, because Heist lets you put a card from Banish into the arena for free.
If
on
it
hit.
hits, right?
Yeah, on hit. But that is one reason.
So this really muted synergy-based design, I think, is part of why everyone had such underwhelmed reactions to the set, you know? If I have to scrap in order to play a 3-for-7, what are we doing? You know, especially with the payoff for scrap not doing that much. Or if I have to boost twice to get nothing, and I have to find ways to make the boost twice interesting. Again, like, there are cards out there. I totally see your argument, Clark, about making it really fun for brewers, but I think the Fab community at large, we like to evaluate things at face value first, and then evaluate synergy. I think at a competitive game, that's a really good floor to have. Like, what am I getting, and what can I get if I work for it?
Yeah, I mean, I think another great example of this is Big Shot, right? It's a 3-for-6 that if you boost 2 or more times, it gains +2. Very, very fair and limited, but you're never going to see this in a real deck because 3 is simply too high of a cost to put at the end of a chain where you're boosting other cards. Sure, you could do if you have a lot of 0 cost and like hyperdrivers out, but like, is that really what you're doing?
Either
To get
that-
a 3-for-8, is that really the reward in
Yeah.
all of this?
Either that or you're activating like Tekla Foundry Heart and then you're burning 2 more cards for 2 points of damage. It just doesn't seem like that good of a trade-off.
And to get 1 overrate value is simply not enough, right? Maximum velocity, 2 for 10 for just boosting 1 more time is actually just so much better of a payoff. Why would anyone ever play this?
And you know what? A 3-for-8 that also blocks 3 is a little bit unprecedented, but we want something a little bit more, right?
Yeah, but it's not even like a popper at 8, right? Like
Yeah.
its base is 6. So like it doesn't even have that additional utility of like being the higher costed power for like Clash being able to like fuck over Victor's clashes or like being able to be a good popper against Prism and Prism's like power reducer effects. Like it really just feels like, oh wow, this was like fine and limited and this was fun and limited, but this is never making it into a constructed environment.
And I feel that way about a lot of the cards. But that's okay. There are a lot of fun cards. I think a lot of people really enjoy some of these designs, and maybe we'll get to see a lot of this iterated upon, and actually maybe we'll go back to Bright Lights and be like, hey, with this new context being the future, some of these cards are actually playable, and the synergy does work. So, especially a lot of these items. I'm going to step off of my pitch here and hand the mic over to Joel. Joel, what do you have for us for Blue Pitch?
So for Blue Pitch, I wanted to talk about some cards that I think, well, one of them is already a good card. The second one is like certified Joel Pipe Dream. The first one I'll talk about is adaptive plating. For those of you who don't know, adaptive plating is a 1-block mechanologist equipment that says modular, or this may be equipped to any equipment zone. It has the subtype of the zone it's equipped to. And as an action, you can pay 0 to equip this to another equipment zone. And it has Galvanize. When this defends, you may destroy an item you control. If you do, this gets +2 defense until the end of turn, and it has Blade Break. The reason why I like this card is because it has a lot of text and it's very versatile. And outside of Adaptive Dissolver, this modular mechanic hasn't really been used to great effect, but I really like it. It seems very versatile. And the reason I've been thinking about this card is because not only are we getting mechanologists in this new set, but I also had this like weird prediction that Marlin. Oh yeah, Marlin, the fish. Marlin the ranger would get a modular equipment because of some of her text that says cannon, and I didn't really know where cannon would show up, so I was like, maybe it's an equipment piece, and maybe you can put a cannon wherever you want, much like you would a ship. Like you put it on the side, you put it on the front of the ship or the back of the ship, whatever. But that doesn't really make sense, because why would you wear a cannon, or why would you put it in lieu of a bow? So if it wasn't going to fit in Marlin's kit, it might be like maybe this pirate ranger mechanologist hybrid card. I don't really know. We don't know if there's going to be
Any hybrid stuff.
hybrid stuff in this new set. So that's kind of why I wanted to talk about adaptive plating. Also, with the reveal of Puff and Hightail and some of her cards that she cares about, none of them say boost yet, only galvanize. So that makes me think that this new mechanologist isn't going to care about a wide range of or like having a deck full of mechanologist cards as much as the previous mechs. So maybe Galvanize is going to be a larger focus than Boost is. And with that being said, you're going to want more ways to galvanize if it's not going to be like a core of your 60 cards. So maybe having redundancy in your equipment zone to galvanize is going to be the move. I don't know if it's going to get reprinted or not, but I think adaptive plating is going to play a big part in this.
I love that you chose this card because there's so many things that I want to talk about. Literally every single line of text I want to discuss on this.
Yeah, it's got a lot going for it, for sure.
Well, right, just because you were mentioning Galvanize just now, I really like how this design lets you pick up, like, random cards that you didn't quite get full value for. Like, a Boom Grenade just kind of wasn't able to land because they blocked you out. Okay, if they're attacking you, you can just turn that Boom Grenade into enabling your equipment to block for 3. Like, you're probably going to find a space where you can block for 3 with this card for free. It feels like you're giving something up because it's an item, but it's an item that was probably about to be destroyed as soon as you get to your turn anyway.
Right.
Yeah. We talked in our Alchemist custom class one, we talked about what were the issues with items, and it was typically they don't have Go Again, they don't have block value. And Crank fixed the issue of Go Again by essentially always being able to remove 1 value from the card to give it Go Again, and Galvanize fixed the block value issue where you were able to generate 2 block from your item, provided you were blocking with another card and gave up the item.
While honoring the reasons why the cards don't usually do that in the first place.
Yes. But the thing that's super weird to me about this card is, like, why can you move it?
Right.
Right? Like, when is the use case that you would ever want to move this?
I literally think just for Tekla and wanting to equip something, but even then that seems weird. I don't know.
Well, actually, for adaptive plating, it's not a base, right? So you couldn't even equip something on top of it, like, oh, I destroyed my arm slot, but now I want to play my other arm slot, so let me just modular this over and then equip it. It's also an action without Go Again, implying that there's actually a pretty big value to this, right? Like, moving equipment slots is supposed to be a full action. Take your whole action point. Is this worth taking a whole action point?
Yeah, I think they were playing the long game with this line of text. I'm not really sure what this is supposed to be.
I think it makes sense that they would want it to be there. Like you're saying, Joel, if it ever matters, a modular piece of equipment should be able to move. Why not?
Now, one thing I do want to mention is that in Bright Lights, lots of designs fell flat. And maybe that's because they had designed other things and went, let's wait a little bit on this, which they've done before. They've said that they've done it with Chaos cards, where they designed a bunch of Chaos cards, and then they were like, we don't like how this works in this limited environment, so we're just going to put them on the shelf.
Yeah.
Maybe these like special little galvanized things and like this modular idea, they were ideas that they were playing around with, but went, let's not put it in Bright Lights and save it for the next mech set. High Seas is coming out. It's the next mech set. Maybe we're getting these cool ideas that ended up not making it into Bright Lights.
I think you're phrasing this as radical, because it's a little radical. It's always exciting to think about, but I think it's very common for LSS to chill the fuck out a little bit and save it for another set. We see it repeatedly.
Yeah, and then sometimes they don't, and we get misfail. Sometimes they're like, oh, what if we just print it anyway?
Like Arachne was supposed to be in Arcane Rising. Arachne from Dynasty was supposed to be in Arcane Rising.
Yeah.
But they just waited forever.
It's so cool when they like reveal what's behind the curtain. You know what I mean?
And I think that's just common in trading card design too. I feel like Mark Rosewater from Magic the Gathering talked about like, oh, we had this design for this set, but it wasn't quite working. So we tried it out in this set and it worked really well. Woo!
Yeah. Or they like just tweak it a little bit, right? They're like, it's there, but it's not quite all there. So we're going to wait and tweak it. I think modular could be that. Being able to equip it anywhere, because one thing that has been talked about recently in the Fab scene, at least at the time of recording this, is Roger That came out with a video where he discussed the problems with Fab Limited, right? Which are, what are his main concerns with how Limited works in Flesh and Blood? And one of his big complaints was equipment and having to draft equipment. Because do you take this equipment now, or are you going to see 2 more arms pieces later? You never really know sometimes, because it's all dependent on what gets opened in the packs and what other people are prioritizing at your table. It's really hard to evaluate that. But what if your equipment had modular? I think modular could make the return and be this fix for a limited issue of, this equipment, it's an arms piece, but like, am I going to see other arms pieces or other chest pieces? But what if it's modular and it doesn't matter where it goes? And now, admittedly, this would probably be on something really, really simple, something similar to like the Blade Beckoner, right? Where like maybe it's like a 2-block blade break or like a 1-block blade break, and it's modular so it can go anywhere, but it's still good to pick up because then it can go anywhere. And you can pick up other pieces and feel more confident in picking up non-modular equipment slots because you know that the one that you did have can just get moved to another slot now.
Yeah.
It can go from being what you thought was your arm slot to now being your leg slot.
I love it.
The last thing I want to talk about adaptive plating, the fact that mech already has a lot of armor identity or a lot of identity in general for evos and boosting. Evos being the identity themselves, and basically every other piece of equipment for mechanologists has been about boosting or caring about a critical threshold of mechanologist cards in your deck, which is like cohesive with boosting. But there isn't a lot of stuff with galvanized specifically outside of adaptive plating. And so that's why I wanted to talk about this card, because I think we're going to see a lot more galvanized text appear on, I guess, non-traditional cards. Just because we've only seen it on equipment and a few attack actions, and then I think like 2 block cards or 1 block card, excuse me.
Yeah, I really like that shout because you're saying there isn't enough item synergy in the Evo equipment. I think with the Max Armory deck, we're getting a little bit more, but that's very hyperdriver focused, right? It'd be cool to see some stuff that just cares about like, maybe it builds up counters, and once you have 3 counters, you can remove a counter when you play an item to put an extra steam counter on it. Something like that.
Either that or just equipment that just straight up cares about having an item in play or that has extra galvanized text to some extent, like a legendary piece. Because I think that's what Puffin would really want to
Oh, like a temper that also has galvanize?
Yeah, that would be sick. Something to sort of differentiate her playstyle from other mechs, because I think mech is the class that cannibalizes their classes more so than other classes.
Yeah. And they've been willing to shift archetypes in a class, right? Like Florian is a mid-range Runeblade when Runeblade has kind of always existed as like an aggro class, right? Why not have a mid-range mechanologist that's less centered around boost? I think it's totally something that LSS likes to do.
Yeah. So I do hope there's a lot more galvanized support and item support in general. The last card I want to talk about is Steel Street Hoons, which I still think is a little stupid that they didn't just call it Goons, because there's no card called Steel Street Goons. So for now on, Hooning is the new Gooning. For all you Gooners out there.
No. I hate that.
And Steel Street Hoons says it's a 3/3 blue pitch 2-block majestic that says boost. If an item you control has been destroyed this turn, it gets +2. And it has galvanize, and it says when this defends, you may destroy an item you control. If you do, it gets +2 defense. And I think every galvanized card in Bright Lights had the same text of you may destroy an item you control. If you do, you get +2 defense. That's been the baseline until Golden Sky Warden came along.
Yeah, they also all have 2 block, which is consistent with Golden Sky Warden.
Actually, not Cognitive Field. That has a 3-block that goes to 5.
Oh, good.
Which, like,
yeah, good call. Good call.
This guy did his research.
Yeah, well,
yeah, he totally beat my ass there.
And the reason why I like this card is because 3 for 5 is like pretty bad, right? But it's at a blue, which makes it pretty decent. And so that means for fatigue matchups, it would be a pretty decent attack in the late game. And I also like Galvanize on versatile attack actions. I think that's generally a good thing because I think Soup Up...
There's a whole, cycle of them.
Yeah, there's a whole cycle of them up to the 3 for 7.
Yeah, it's 0 is Soup Up. The 1 cost is a 1 for 5 that if an item's been destroyed, it makes blocking worse. And then another one the 2 for 6 has Overpower, I believe.
Yeah. And so I like that they're starting to explore more with Galvanize having separate text, because Golden Sky Warden says, when this defends, you may destroy an item you control. If you do, this gets +1. And if a golden cog is destroyed this way, create a gold and repeat this process. Which is technically different, but it equates to getting +2 like the original Galvanize. But my hope is that in High Seas, they explore a little bit more with the Galvanize mechanic and have other effects, like maybe dealing direct damage or getting life in some way, or I don't know, just adding other effects so that it's a little bit more interesting of a mechanic to play with other than just turning stuff into 4-block. I also think this card could be good for Max. I think hyperdrivers, unless there's a lot of new synergy to just add a shit ton of steam counters on all your hyperdrivers. I think Supercell does that. I'm not 100% sure.
Supercell definitely does that. Supercell can get really exponential value because if you have 3 hyperdrivers out and then you do X3, then they all get 3 counters and you get a third, right?
Yeah.
But if you only have 1 hyperdriver, then you're kind of locked into X being 1. So like your X can increase for every other hyperdriver you have, which then means each hyperdriver you have gets that much more value.
And vice versa, if you're racing as Max versus another hero and you're not able to resolve a really big Supercell, I think Steel Street Hoons is a really good card to think about including because it can still be a boost card to activate your hero ability, as well as be a galvanized card for the hyperdriver that's going to be destroyed on your next boost attack. It might not be the most tuned play a Max player can do, but it's at least an interesting thought.
Mm-hmm. Cool card.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those cards that every single time I make a Max list, I'm like, can I find room for it? Can I put it in there? I'd like to.
Yeah, I think as a whole, Bright Lights had a lot of really interesting Majestics that just don't see play right now, and I'm really excited for High Seas to iterate on a lot of that stuff and make some of those things playable.
Yeah. Give us some overrate Steel Street Hoons, you know?
Yeah, dude. But that's pretty much all I got for right now. These are the cards that I wanted to see their design flourish in High Seas and maybe iterated upon. But I think now we should just move on to our Arsenal Zone.
Yeah.
Listeners, our Arsenal Zone is the part of the podcast where we all shout out a card that we've been thinking about lately for whatever reason we want. We're going to start off with a suggestion from our Patreon members.
Yeah. So if you join our Patreon at the $5 or $10 tier, you get to offer a card suggestion whenever we're recording for a Arsenal Zone card. We keep track of them over week to week, so you can just throw them in there whenever you feel like it. And then we randomly decide which card gets shouted out. So let's go ahead and get ready to roll that dice.
Dice rolls. Hey, we got number 2, which is Bwipy.
Bwipy! Mr. Corn Dogs himself.
So Bwipy has been consistently submitting cards, and I think we've already done rapid fire, so this time we'll do Crazy Brew, and this is what he has to say. Hell yeah, you want an easy way to turn on Gravy Bones? Drop this shit early on, and you can choose to activate it, roll the dice, and baby, you got a blue card going to the graveyard that turn. So true, bestie.
Unironically, I really like Crazy Brew and Gravy Bones. Just the fact that you can high roll the 2 resources and 2 action points in like an ally-centric list. Mm-hmm. Seems really, really strong.
We be running the Gambler's Gloves Crazy Brew combo.
Oh, Gambler's Gloves and Gravy Bones.
Hold on. I got something spicy for you. Life of the Party in Gravy Bones. Because you need to...
Life of the Party.
So Crazy Brew is a 0-block blue item that costs 0, and it says action. Destroy Crazy Brew. Roll a 6-sided die, and on 1 and 2, you lose 2 life and go again.
Arg.
On 3 and 4, you gain 2 life, go again.
Arg, woohoo.
And on 5 and 6, you gain 2 resources, 2 action points, and your next attack at this turn gains 2.
That'd be a lot of booty for a 5 and 6.
So true, bestie. I think there's not a lot of downside. Like, even paying 2 life to discard this card, like, that's not a huge...
Two life just to put it in graveyard from field.
And you get your action point back, baby.
Yep.
Action back point, baby!
The upsides on this card is pretty cool, especially if like the ally attacks don't have go again, or like playing the ally doesn't have go again. Like this is a great option to sort of high roll your opponents and establish a board if you're Gravy Bones.
Life of the Party, putting a blue in your graveyard. Hello.
Yeah, life of the party is definitely like the right way to use Crazy Brew, but wonderful local Anthony Pham loves shoving Crazy Brew into some decks. I know that he was running a one of in Aurora not too long ago. I know that when he won the Players' Championship in the first AGE Open Series
With Icelander, yep.
he ran it in Icelander. Like
He fucking registered that shit.
And you know, Life of the Party
and he
says...
won.
Life of the Party says you can discard the Crazy Brew instead of paying Life of the Party's resource cost.
Discard it from hand
Yeah.
You may discard or destroy.
or destroy.
So you could just discard the Crazy Brew, get to go again from playing Life of the Party that way, and then you're attacking for 6 go again on hit, gain 2 life, and then you can like follow up with allies or whatever.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't like discarding it, but
It's the same value, except you don't have to pay the cost
well,
of putting
the
on
difference
field.
is having the extra card in hand. Like, I like the
Yeah.
idea of playing a Crazy Brew and then arsenaling Life of the Party, and then attacking with Life of the Party, destroying the Crazy Brew.
You could do
on the
that too.
field.
I have a hard time imagining that.
You have a hard time. Oh, sorry. You have a hard time imagining a potion being on the field when I play another card, than having them both appear in the same hand together.
You were right, Clark. I did not phrase that correctly at all. I have a hard time imagining myself having the discipline in order to have those 2 cards in my hand and not just play them together on the same turn. It's a personal thing. It's an indulgent thing. It's not I have a hard time imagining Clark doing it. Clark would do that shit.
Sure.
Clark would wait and get a second marshmallow in an hour or 2, you know?
Wait, what?
Yes.
Camp thing?
Delayed gratification.
No, it's the delayed gratification. That's a social studies class thing.
I'm accounted as camp thing. Anyways, thank you, Bwipy, for making this suggestion. If you didn't hear your card shouted out, feel free to keep submitting. We will get to yours eventually. We roll them randomly, so it's kind of hard to pick them out.
And we love just hearing about what cards you've been thinking about.
Yeah.
I think we're going to go to our shout-outs. Clark, do you want to start?
Sure, I'll start by shouting out Flourish. Hey, remember in turn 0 when I said that I was playing around with Ira? Well, I've also been playing around with Florian. And recently, I bit the bullet and bought some First Strike decks. I have been notoriously avoiding them because I hate the fact that the commons in the Aurora First Strike deck are worth $10+. I think that is utter fucking bullshit, and I think they should never do that ever again. Thank God they got reprinted in the Armory deck so that they can drop in cost, but that pissed me off that there was a beginner specific product with really expensive commons and rares. Flourish was one of these cards, but not as much because it didn't see the same play that Sizzle and Static Shock did.
And you're about to argue why Flourish actually should be a $10 common.
I think Flourish is a lot better than people giving it credit for. Flourish currently has only been printed at yellow or blue. It is a 0-cost Earth action 2-block. 2-block. That says the next time an attack would gain power this turn, it gains that much +3. So if it would gain +1, instead it gains +4.
Yeah, they put that example right on the card.
Well, it's almost like I read it off the card. And it has Go Again. It is a proactive Earth card to play when Earth doesn't have a lot of proactive Earth cards. So if you're early in the game and you're just hunting for good Decompose cards, Flourish is a great card to play for that. Like, it's an Earth card that you can get offensive value from. And it's also just a good rate. Like, a yellow 0 for 3 pump is solid. Like, I think I talked fairly recently about how Nimblism feels real strong as a 0 for +3 for low-costed decks. Hey, guess what? This does the same thing, but it's yellow. You just have to make sure that your card is already gaining power. But a lot of the Decompose cards that we're already looking to run, Felling, Plow Under, in some lists, Cadaverous, Tilling, all of them already gain power by decomposing. So if you only have one Earth card and an action card and you go, oh no, I need to decompose this turn to have a good offensive turn, don't block, play Flourish, and then decompose with your Tilling. Now you have a 3-card 11 and you got to decompose.
Yeah, it does fill a certain niche. There's not a lot of Earth 0-cost cards. Like, looking at the list that I would run in Florian, you have, like, Arcane Seed's Life, which is great. No one's questioning that.
Auto include.
It's also only really able to be played in Florian and, like, Briar, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then there's a lot of blues that are giving you, like, very minute value, maybe because they're an item or a sigil.
Yeah.
And then there's defensive 0 costs, which are really what we're looking for here. And then Weave Earth. Weave Earth is the only other one. And Weave Earth is like, okay, you know? But what if it was yellow instead of red and still gave you 3 value? It was just a little more conditional.
Exactly. And I think that Earth does have the tools to make it fairly turned on a lot of the time. or it's just another Earth card that you can pitch, say for helping keeping your channels around. I think this card has a lot of utility, and I think it's very underutilized, include in Florian. And as I work on figuring out what deck I'm going to be bringing to the May AGE, I'm going to be messing around with it. Yeah, that's it. That's what I got.
Awesome shout, Clark.
Fuzzy, what about you?
So the card that I'm shouting out today is Mandible Claw.
What?
I'm sure this card already got talked a lot about. Probably, I bet like Joel shouted out this card before, but I've been craving some Brute. I got to play our friend Valerio's Brute list just on our kitchen table, and we played 2 games and I won both of them. So I think I'm a Brute expert, you know? I think I'm potentially maybe even the best player to ever play Brute because I have 100% win rate.
True.
I definitely don't remember when you rolled Knucklebones and got a 1.
Did I do that on stream?
No, you did
Knucklehead,
and you rolled it in our unseen gameplay video.
Yeah. I also have rolled Knucklehead on stream in a CC game at AGE. That was pretty fun.
I don't know if you got a 1 there. I think you got like a 3 or a 4.
It was like a 2 or a 3. It was bad, but anyway. I've been like wanting to play Rhinar, and this is mostly, I'm gonna be honest, it comes from like losing a lot of games of CC lately at armories, at tournaments. Like the last like month and a half, I've just been like having like 50% win rates or worse at like every event I go to. Save for like 1 or 2 armories where I did get like a 3-1 win, you know?
Yeah.
Like those are kind of like my best events lately. So I've been like, look, if I am trying to win and I'm not winning, why not try to play a deck that I think can still win while also looks like a blast to play? And Rhinar, I'm going to be honest, just looks really fun, you know? And Mandible Claws, you know, one of those reasons why Rhinar is so good. You play Blood Rush Bellows, you swing with both claws, 2 for 5, go again, 2 for 5, go again, into whatever other brute attack you want. It's great.
And it always works out that way.
Yeah. It never doesn't work out.
I saw that guy on stream that was like losing a game against Florian. I think his name's Eugene.
Oh, yeah.
And he played Sand Sketched Plan to grab a second Blood Rush Bellows after playing 1. And because he didn't discard that Blood Rush Bellows immediately, he intimidated like the Florian's entire hand and dealt 24 damage and won the game. And like,
to be fair, that was a 25% chance loss. Like he had he had 4 cards in hand when he went for that Blood Rush.
He was already down like 12 life against a Florian. So like, I like the idea of a hero that like, look, if you're already losing, you have a Hail Mary that can sometimes cinch the game sometimes. Joel's shaking his head because I think Joel doesn't have the mental to handle playing a chaotic hero like that.
Look, it is
What? Continue. I don't have shit to say.
It's the meme of the fucking bell curve, and it's like the stupid side is like, always roll your scab skins, and then the middle is like, never roll scab skins ever, and then the truly enlightened are like, always roll scab skins.
It's so
like,
real.
There are definitely very intelligent times to go for that play, and Eugene is a master at finding them. I give a ton of credit to him in that Blood Rush play, but also I feel like it's bad advice to give to every new Brute player, because every new Brute player will be like, well, I have tempo and 4 cards in hand, I guess I'll roll scab skins. It's like, no, don't do it.
Because it's always the 1 in 36 Brute that's on fucking stream that embarrasses every other seasoned Brute player. It's like, I'm a new player. I'll get into Brute. I'll just roll scabs every game.
No, Joel. He sat there and thought about it for a while before he did the play.
Eugene found the exact moment to take that risk. It was good.
So maybe I'll just come back in a month and be like, I think I want to play this other hero.
And I'll be waiting.
Literally next week.
Yeah. Honestly. Oh, that's funny.
So I brought a copy of Mandible Claw to sign and give to each of you today.
Thank
Nice.
you, Fuzzy.
Thank you, Fuzzy.
I can't wait to run that, honest to God.
1 for you and 1 for you.
Thank you, Fuzzy.
Joel, what do you got?
So my card is Skyward Serenade, which is a yellow 2-block lightning rublade action that costs 0 and says, choose 2, create an embodiment of lightning token, search your deck for a Skizix, banish it, then shuffle, and you may play it this turn. Your next attack gets +1. And it has go again. And this card is good for a lot of reasons. If you've listened to the podcast or been in our Discord, you know that Clark is a staunch hater of Arc Lightning. And I wasn't so convinced. I thought Arc Lightning was pretty mid. It has like good ceiling potential, but overall wasn't that great of a card. And when Skyward Serenade got printed, it sort of just broke that card beyond recognition. It's so easy to Arc Lightning and then play Skyward Serenade and get like easily like 5 arcane damage from that one card. It grabs you a 0 for 4 and turns on every one of your like synergistic pieces. I mean, it's not surprising because LSS has done this before where they take an already winning aggro deck, gives them an armory deck with really good pieces KO. And it doesn't really make sense as an armory deck. It doesn't really make sense as like a meta fixing move or whatever, because Aurora is already going to be the next best Runeblade. And they sort of just like turned it up to 11, and now she's on her way to LL within the year. Yeah. And it's just a little puzzling to me. I have some more choice words, but I'm not going to say that on the podcast. So I just wanted to shout it out and let you guys voice your grievances.
I really feel like Aurora right now is in a similar place to where Lexi was a year back or so. Like, Lexi was just kind of like the top tier aggro deck, and everyone had to deal with Lexi, and even the decks that kind of had game into Lexi, like, she was just so good of an aggro deck that there's only so much you could do, you know?
Yeah.
At least, like, I don't know, was Dromai beating Lexi back then? Like, you had, like, bullshit allies to deal with that could handle the aggro?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. Like, not in a way that would, like, stop Lexi from doing her thing, because she's still Endless Arrow, Art of War, Brain Racers, like...
Lexi was still really strong and the best aggro deck. But Dromai would still just, like, win sometimes because, like, Illusionist.
Yeah.
Like, Aurora right now is just very dominant. Very dominant, and I think she's at the point where I think she could use some bans, but I could also see LSS being like, nope, not quite there. We want to be really sure.
I mean, one thing that LSS has said about their strong heroes is that they want all heroes to last at least 1 year. So the Mistveil heroes, it looks like some of them may not make a full year. But Aurora, I think, would make a full year. It really depends on how many points she gets this PQ season.
I think this scenario is a little bit more frustrating for me because it's literally just a 0 for 4 deck. And it seems to me that even though Lightning, I think, in general was a success in terms of redesigning the identity so that it's away from like the like Blink Entwined Lightning bullshit that we had in Tales of Aria, but now it's sort of being like flattened again because of it's just easier to make the most refined Lightning deck and just do every 0 for 4 that you can shove in there. And I don't know, to me it just seems like a flavor loss, but still very strong card. I'm glad that the LLing of Viserai has made it so that other aggro decks can sort of compete and find their own ways in the competitive meta. I'm just a little annoyed that it happened to be with another aggressive hero that got an armory deck. Anyways, that's my card.
Yeah.
Glad we could end on an upper. Thank you so much for podcasting with me, boys.
Yeah.
And if you have an Arsenal card that you think we should have talked about, feel free to join our Patreon and let us know in the Arsenal Zones suggestion channel. We roll randomly every single episode, so eventually you'll get picked. And remember, as High Seas continues to get more spoilers, our Discord is the only place where you can see them. So feel free to join our Discord. And I think we'll see you next time.
Yeah, make sure you're getting your vitamin C. Scurvy's real out there.
So true.
I really hope Captain Hornswoggle is getting plenty of vitamin C while he's on the high seas. Yeah.
He's got to live long enough for us to see him at our pitch and prediction, or set release episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Next one, guys. Bye.
Bye. Pitch It To Me podcast is hosted by Fuzzy Delp, Clark Moore, and Joel Recinos. Executive producer, Talon Stradley. Logistics coordinator, John Farkas. Music by Dillon Hulse. Logo by Han V. Sound mixing, Christopher Moore. And last but not least, you. Thank you for listening. Please give us a follow on your favorite social media platform at Pitch It To Me podcast.